Hey, good day, all. This is TurboDave here at Performance Corner. Getting on to the NISMO R35 and attack. The one thing I didn't talk about that was, in my opinion, probably one of the best things about going to Japan, getting to do the N attack, is actually working there at their facility. I've never been to a facility like that here in the States. They're just the way they structure everything, their security, and everything. It's pretty tight. Your card clearance. I mean, I know they do that here. Your card clearance gets you into certain doors and stuff like that. But even like mealtime. So when you break for lunch, you go up. There's actually a cafeteria. You have a little card, and their food was really healthy. It's kind of funny, kind of a contradiction to what we have here for our lunch and stuff like that. And their food was really good. Aside from that, we got to walk through just to get to where we needed to go. Anytime from the area we were in to getting to outside the smoking area. Our trainer enjoyed his tobacco, so we would a lot of times go outside and follow him. And my European counterparts also like to smoke, so we would go outside in their little smoking area. But everything, you get to walk by and stuff like that. Like I said, there's the GT300s are built there, and the GT500s are built there. So GT300s, we could actually walk through and take a look at them. They were in more of a common area for us. Where the GT500 was actually in a different corridor that we would walk by, and actually sometimes we could see inside. They would leave the door slightly open or whatever, but if you walk by one way and then you did whatever you had to do, and then on your way back, even if it was just 5 minutes later, if they noticed that you were looking in or that people were walking by, when there was clear, they would close the door immediately. It's pretty funny. But it was really cool just working in a facility like that. When your performance-based facility is so big and it's so clean and just everything. I mean, everything was there. They had a special area for building the trans and the diffs, and another area for engines and stuff like that. I actually got to talk to a guy from England who was going to be the technician for the GT300, and they were building the engines at that time. He stayed in the same hotel. We were completely different because he was just there for engines. He got there about the same time I did, but he stayed a little bit longer. But I got to talk to him over dinner one night. There's a place next door to where we were staying. It was McDonald's across the street, or right next door there was an Indian food place. So I went in there for dinner one night, and he was there, so we sat and talked and stuff like that, a bit about what's going on. And it was pretty interesting though, because the car wasn't super new, but a lot of things that were going on with it at that time hadn't been let out or whatever. So they had their own iterations of stuff going on. But it's just a huge facility that has a lot of stuff, a lot of performance stuff, a lot of building, and just their technique and the way they do things. I got to see a lot of old 32s, 33s, 34s come in. Stagia. If you don't know what a Stagia is, it's a wagon version of a R32, 33, 34. It's actually pretty cool. People would bring their cars in, get engines done or engine trans, whatever you wanted. But to watch them, because they were on the outside of us in a more common area. Actually, if you go to NISMO in Yokohama, you can see their work area from the little shopping area that they have there, where you can buy stuff at, and their little tiny museum of cars they constantly changing the cars that are in that little museum area. But you can see what they're working on and see how they work, and it's pretty interesting because I was there for days on end. So they pick up the car, they work on the cars, they pull the engines, trans, or whatever they're working on, and they put them to the side, and they have two guys come in these little vans. They're like a cleaning crew, and they detail these cars, and then all of a sudden the cars disappear too. So it's pretty cool because it's the attention to detail, I guess, kind of just like the build of the vehicle of the N-Attack. The attention to detail for everything there is incredible, you know. So it's not just, you know, oh, the N-Attack or whatever. It's the way they handled and treated people's cars. It's really different than the way you see a lot of cars get treated here. And I've tried to bring a lot of that back with me. You know, when you have somebody who's spending money, you know, and everybody has a different idea of how much money to spend or what they spend on, but you know, they would detail their cars, and like the engine bays were meticulously clean. I got to go by some after they pulled the engine out and before they moved the car, but after they had cleaned it, the two guys come by and cleaned it. And it was crazy because it was so clean. You know, it was like they waxed the inside, everything was perfect. It wasn't like they freshly painted it, but considering the age of the car, and the owner took good care of them, and so they kind of just, you know, transpired that same, you know, feel for their car. You know, their owner of the car treated their car very well, and the shop did the same for them. You know, they did the best that you can, you know, for a car like that. So a lot of things there were pretty interesting about that. As far as the N-Attack goes, when we got into the N-Attack, after, like I said, we pulled the engine and drivetrain on the last session, we pulled out the interior. That was pretty much like part number 2. The rear seat, front seats do have a competition front seat here because of legalities. It's up to you to change it. We will set we did set the harnesses in. There were Williams harness. Shoots. I think they're Williams harness. And we'd set those in. We'd mount those and everything. But the rear seats had to be taken out because that's where the upper part of the harness gets mounted to. So there was a rear seat delete. And because there's speakers back there, there's a new centerpiece, all carbon fiber, a new rear deck lid that gets rid of the rear speakers and everything. And actually behind the rear seat, if you look at a GTR R35 and you pull the back seat there's an aluminum panel back there. And it's actually an intricate part of the chassis. Keeps it from swaying. It's like if you were to put braces on your car. But this is from the factory. They're technically not supposed to remove it. That's what they said originally. I talked to some other people before I even went to do this. They never wanted you to remove that aluminum piece. But you unbolt the aluminum piece, and you kind of have to bang it out because it's glued in. There's an adhesive that they use, plus the fasteners. So you take that off, and then there's this massive carbon fiber piece that goes inside there and replaces it. I mean, it's a really, like I've said about the other carbon fiber pieces, it's a really, really nice piece. But it was like, the aluminum piece was heavy, but it wasn't like, it's not like 30 pounds. It was something like 15 or 16 pounds. And then this carbon fiber piece was like 2 or 3 pounds, you know. But structurally, it's obviously a really strong piece, but it saves you all that weight. So this is where you look at it and you're like, wow, weight savings everywhere. So you pull out the rear seat. So there's no bottom, there's no back. There's a new carbon fiber center. There's a new carbon fiber rear structure behind the seat. And then you put these cloth pieces that are actually really nice. So you don't ever want to jump into the back of one of those because there's actually a big post sticking out, like a big threaded stud for the mounting of the stock seats. So you don't ever want to see an N-Attack and be like, oh my god, these are the rear, they look just like rear seats, and jump in it, because there is a piece sticking there and it'll get you pretty good. But you know, that whole section, it looks like there's 2 kind of seats back there, but there's not. And then you have a center carbon fiber piece, which is good. It's really nice. So you had to pull to take all that. You have to pull all the wires out. Plus, we talked about getting the rear deck lid and the rear bumpers and stuff off. So you pull all the wiring out. And you do all that stuff. Just to actually, the wiring stuff has to be pulled for the carbon fiber brace, the one that goes behind the rear seat, because all the wires from inside the car go through it, through the trunk up to the deck lid, lights or whatnot, and then out and back under the car. And there's an emissions canister on the right side of the car, which is our passenger side of the car, underneath, in the on the side of the rear bumper, rear wheel area. So that all those wires have to be pulled all the way through into the car, and that's why I talked about replacing all the clips, because a lot of those clips, when you pop them off, they're one-time use only. Sometimes you get lucky and you can reuse them. Sometimes, a lot of times you don't. So all those clips came with the kit. So, you know, doing all that interior work, like I said, the front seats can get changed to the race seats, and that's up to the owner of the vehicle. There's not a whole lot going on in the inside, but it takes quite a bit of time. You know, what I just explained really quick, just the seatbelts alone, you have to measure exactly where they go in specific space. They have plates that get mounted and stuff like that, and they want them in certain positioning areas, or positioned from the direction that the belts go in. So all that is very time consuming. It's also time consuming to remove the rear brace, you know, the rear bulkhead from behind the rear seat. So that alone, it's kind of tight, because you can't, or they don't want you to take out the rear window, the rear windshield. So as it drops down and there's fasteners back there, it's, you know, a quarter turn at a time with a wrench, or, you know, a very low profile ratchet. So it's just doing the interior work is very time consuming. You know, it's almost hard to understand when you think about it, because you think this is a you know, a bolt-on kit, where yes, it is, you know, put together very well, but there's still fabrication and modifications that have to go on. So we're talking, you know, days. You know, you have a couple days into it easily. You know, just getting the interior in, and it's not like we're ripping the whole interior out. You know, we're just getting the seats out and the rear bulkhead and stuff like that, putting race harnesses on and stuff like that. So it's a pretty intense build, especially when you're on a you know, truncated time schedule. The first one I did, some people that were involved didn't understand the time frame and what it takes to do it, and so it wasn't put a lot of pressure on. But because for the first one, NISMO wanted to kind of be overseen, I needed to be done in a certain time, and I needed to be overseen by our trainer. So they came out and they ended up having to stay for a couple weeks upon the second visit. So it was some long days and long weeks. We were working 12 plus hours a day sometimes, and we were 7 days a week for about 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, I think, in the middle of the summer. So it was actually a very hot summer that year, and so I was just working and sweating a lot, and you know, to get it done. But it's a very intense job, and you're trying to maintain the whole time. It's not a you know, you're not slamming this car together. There's a certain amount of finesse that has to go into it, and I think that's like, it's like the good and bad part, because you're giving it the highest standard of that you can. You're trying to get it done, so you're working extra time, you know, to get it done. But I think moving forward, you know, even not doing the end attack, that how they did that, how they worked there, I think was really, really good. Because sometimes you see things, you see how cars are built, but that finesse, that extra edge that you give it, the extra time you give it, sometimes is hard to see until you do it. And that's one thing I try to convey on everything that I do now. It's just that do it that much better. Always looking for the better, and that's probably the biggest thing that I gained from the N attack. I wish it was a more valued piece of machinery here, and it's just not because one of the biggest reasons is it's a 600 horsepower GTR, but it's fast in its own right, and it's fast for what it's built to do. So until next time, this is TurboDave here at Performance Corner, and we'll talk to you next time. If you like our videos, please subscribe, and we'll see you then. Thank you. Stay safe.